The rain fell in sheets across the city streets, but it wasn't the water streaming down Sarah's face that broke Michael's heart, it was the tears. There she was, the woman he had once vowed to love forever, huddled beneath a tattered umbrella, a cardboard sign clutched in her trembling hands. Their eyes met across the busy intersection, and in that moment, everything changed. What Michael did next would not only transform both their lives but touch the hearts of millions around the world. If this story already has you reaching for tissues, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more incredible true stories that remind us of the power of compassion and second chances. Michael Jenkins clutched the steering wheel of his sedan, knuckles white as the traffic light turned red. The windshield wipers fought a losing battle against the downpour, but even through the blur, he recognized her immediately. How could he not? Despite the years that had passed, despite everything that had happened between them, he would know Sarah anywhere. 5 years earlier, their divorce had been finalized after 7 years of marriage. It hadn't been particularly ugly, just sad, hollow, the slow death of something that had once seemed unbreakable. Sarah's addiction had consumed her, transforming the vibrant, loving woman he'd married into someone he barely recognized. For the sake of their daughter, Emma, then only 4 years old, he'd fought for full custody. The court had agreed, and Sarah had disappeared from their lives shortly after, missing visitations and eventually stopping all contact. Now here she was, soaked to the bone, holding a sign that read, "Homeless. Anything helps. God bless." The light turned green. Cars behind him honked impatiently. Michael should have driven on, that's what the logical part of his brain screamed at him to do. She had chosen drugs over their family. She had walked away from their daughter. She had broken every promise. Instead, he pulled over. "Sarah," he called, stepping out into the rain without an umbrella. "Sarah, is that you?" She looked up, and for a moment, there was nothing but confusion in her eyes. Then recognition dawned, followed immediately by shame. She turned away, trying to hide her face, but it was too late. "Michael," she whispered, her voice barely audible above the patter of rain and the rush of passing cars. "Please, just go. You shouldn't see me like this." But Michael couldn't move. Standing before him was the shell of the woman he had once loved with his entire being, the mother of his child, the person who had once made him laugh until his sides hurt, who had held his hand through his father's funeral, who had cried tears of joy when Emma was born. "How long have you been out here?" he asked, his voice catching. Sarah shrugged, not meeting his eyes. "On and off. A few months this time." "This time? I've been in and out of shelters. Sometimes I stay with people." She shifted uncomfortably. "Look, I don't want your pity. I made my choices." Michael stood there, rain soaking through his business suit, thinking about Emma at home with the babysitter, their bright, curious 9-year-old who sometimes still asked about the mother she barely remembered. He thought about the spare bedroom in their modest house, the one he used as a home office. He thought about second chances, and whether some people deserve them. "When did you last eat?" he asked finally. Sarah looked up, surprised by the question. "Yesterday, I think. Someone gave me half a sandwich." Michael made a decision then that would change everything. "Come with me. Let's get you something warm to eat, and we can talk." Sarah hesitated, clutching her few belongings closer. "Why would you help me? After everything?" "I don't know yet," Michael answered honestly. "But I can't just drive away and leave you here." At the small diner a few blocks away, Sarah sat across from Michael, her hands wrapped around a mug of hot coffee. The waitress had given them a concerned look when they'd walked in, both of them soaking wet, Sarah in her tattered clothes, but Michael's quiet dignity had silenced any comments. As Sarah ate her first real meal in days, the story spilled out between bites. After the divorce, she'd spiraled deeper into addiction. There had been rehab attempts, 3 of them, but nothing had stuck. She'd lost jobs, apartments, friends. She'd hit rock bottom more than once, only to find there was always further to fall. 6 months ago, I overdosed, she said quietly. Woke up in the hospital. The doctor told me I was lucky to be alive. She looked up, meeting Michael's eyes for the first time. That was when I knew I had to change. I've been clean since then. It's the longest I've ever gone. 6 months, Michael repeated, trying to process everything. That's good, Sarah. It's not enough, I know. Nothing will ever be enough to make up for what I did to you and Emma. Her voice broke on their daughter's name. How is she? Michael pulled out his phone, scrolling to a recent photo of Emma at her school science fair, proudly standing next to her project on solar energy. She's amazing. Smart, kind, stubborn as hell sometimes. Sarah stared at the photo, tears welling in her eyes. She looks like you. She has your smile, Michael said softly. And your artistic talent. She fills sketchbooks faster than I can buy them. They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of all the lost years between them. I never stopped loving her, Sarah finally said. I know that doesn't mean anything, not after I abandoned her. But I think about her every day. I keep her birthday card in my bag, even though I've never had the courage to send it. Michael took a deep breath. What he was considering was crazy. It could backfire in 100 different ways. Emma could get hurt all over again. He could be enabling Sarah rather than helping her. But looking at her now, truly seeing her beneath the dirt and desperation, he recognized something he hadn't expected, determination. Where are you staying tonight? He asked. Sarah shrugged. There's a shelter on 8th Street. If I get there early enough, sometimes they have beds. Michael nodded, making up his mind. I have a proposition for you. He laid it out simply. Sarah could stay in their spare room, temporarily. She would need to continue staying clean, attend NA meetings, and look for work. They would take it one day at a time. Most importantly, they would be careful with Emma, no promises, no expectations. Sarah would be introduced as a friend first, until they could be sure this arrangement would work. Why would you do this? Sarah asked, disbelief written across her face. After everything I put you through? Michael considered his answer carefully. Partly for Emma. She deserves to know her mother, if that's possible now. Partly because I believe people can change, I have to believe that. He paused. And partly because 15 years ago, I promised to love you in sickness and in health. The marriage ended, but maybe some promises don't. That night, after Emma had gone to bed, Michael showed Sarah to the spare room. He'd cleared out his desk and computer, laying fresh sheets on the fold-out couch. It wasn't much, but compared to the streets, it was a palace. The bathrooms down the hall. There are clean towels in the cabinet, he said, standing awkwardly in the doorway. I put some of my old t-shirts and sweatpants in the drawer. They'll be too big, but they're clean. Sarah stood in the middle of the room, looking lost. Michael, I don't know how to thank you. Don't thank me yet, he said quietly. This isn't going to be easy, for any of us. He was right. The first weeks were a delicate balance. Sarah attended NA meetings daily, sometimes twice a day when the cravings got bad. Michael worked from home more often, partly to keep an eye on things, partly because he was terrified of what might be missing when he returned. Emma was curious about the quiet woman who now lived with them, asking questions that Michael answered as honestly as he could without revealing too much too soon. She's an old friend who's going through a tough time, he explained. We're helping her get back on her feet. Emma, with a child's intuition, seemed to sense there was more to the story, but she accepted the explanation. She was polite to Sarah, if somewhat reserved. Sarah, for her part, walked on eggshells, desperate not to make a mistake that would send her back to the streets. She kept the house spotless, cooked meals when Michael was working late, and gave Emma her space. At night, Michael sometimes heard her crying quietly in her room, but he never mentioned it. The turning point came unexpectedly, about a month after Sarah had moved in. Michael came home from work to find Emma and Sarah sitting at the kitchen table, surrounded by colored pencils and sketchbooks. Emma was showing Sarah how to draw a horse, patiently guiding her hand. "You have to make the legs longer," Emma was saying. "Horses have really long legs." "Like this?" Sarah asked, making an adjustment to her drawing. "Better," Emma nodded seriously. "You're getting it." Michael stood in the doorway, watching them, something tight and painful in his chest finally beginning to loosen. That night, after Emma was asleep, he and Sarah sat on the porch swing, mugs of tea in hand. "She doesn't know who I am, does she?" Sarah asked softly. Michael shook his head. "Not yet. I wanted to be sure. That I wouldn't disappear again," Sarah finished for him. "I understand. I wouldn't trust me either." "It's not just that," Michael said. "I needed to see if there was still something there between you two, some connection. And I think there is." Sarah wiped away a tear. "She's so beautiful, Michael. So perfect. I can't believe I missed so much of her life." "You don't have to miss any more," Michael said quietly. 2 months turned into 3, then 4. Sarah found a job at a local bakery, working early morning shifts that allowed her to be home when Emma returned from school. She continued her NA meetings, earning chips for her sobriety milestones that she kept in a small box beside her bed. The fold-out couch was replaced with a real bed. Her few belongings expanded to fill a dresser, then a closet. Michael watched the transformation with a mixture of hope and caution. He'd seen Sarah try to get clean before, seen her determination crumble under the weight of addiction. But something was different this time. Perhaps it was hitting rock bottom, perhaps it was the second chance with Emma, perhaps it was simply that she was ready. Whatever the reason, day by day, the Sarah he had once known began to re-emerge from beneath the layers of pain and regret. 6 months after that rainy day at the intersection, Michael sat Emma down for the conversation he'd been both dreading and anticipating. "Honey, there's something important I need to tell you about Sarah," he began carefully. Emma looked at him with those serious eyes that sometimes seemed too wise for her 9 years. "She's my mom, isn't she?" Michael stared, stunned. "How did you know?" Emma shrugged. "I saw a picture once, in your drawer. And she has the same laugh as me." "Dad, I'm not a baby." Michael pulled his daughter into a hug, marveling at her resilience, her capacity for understanding. "No, you're certainly not a baby. You're the strongest person I know." "Is she going to stay with us now?" Emma asked, her voice muffled against his shoulder. "Would you want that?" Emma pulled back, considering the question with all the gravity it deserved. "I think so. She makes you smile more. And she helps me with my art." "She's worked very hard to get better," Michael explained. "She was sick for a long time, but she's doing everything she can to be healthy now." "I know," Emma said simply. "She told me she goes to meetings to stay strong. Like how Grandpa goes to his AA meetings." Michael blinked back tears, once again humbled by his daughter's perception and compassion. That evening, the 3 of them sat together in the living room, Sarah perched nervously on the edge of the sofa as Michael explained to Emma the full truth of their family history, in terms appropriate for a child, but without sugarcoating the reality of addiction and its consequences. When he finished, Emma was quiet for a long moment. Then she turned to Sarah. "Can I call you Mom? Or do you want me to keep calling you Sarah?" Sarah's hands trembled as she reached out, stopping just short of touching Emma. "You can call me whatever makes you comfortable, sweetheart." Emma considered this, then nodded decisively. "I think I'll try Mom. I've never had one before, not that I remember, anyway." Sarah broke then, tears streaming down her face as Emma moved across the couch to hug her. Michael watched them, his own vision blurring, as years of pain and separation began, slowly, to heal. The road ahead wasn't smooth. There were difficult days when Sarah's cravings returned with a vengeance, when the shame of her past threatened to overwhelm her progress. There were awkward moments as they navigated their new family dynamic, as Michael and Sarah attempted to co-parent while maintaining appropriate boundaries. There were questions from friends, from Emma's teachers, from neighbors, some supportive, others judgmental. But there were beautiful moments too. Emma's 10th birthday, celebrated with a homemade cake that Sarah had learned to bake at her job. Sarah's one-year sobriety chip, which Emma insisted on keeping in her treasure box. Family movie nights where they piled onto the couch with popcorn and blankets, Emma sandwiched between her parents, giggling at the screen. Gradually, almost imperceptibly, their arrangement evolved. Sarah moved from the spare room to an apartment a few blocks away, close enough to remain deeply involved in Emma's life, but with the space and independence she needed to continue her recovery journey. Michael helped her furnish it, Emma decorated the walls with her artwork, and they established a routine of family dinners and weekend activities. 2 years after that rainy day, Michael sat on a park bench watching Emma and Sarah fly a kite across the open field. The sun caught in Sarah's hair, now healthy and shining, as she ran alongside their daughter, both of them laughing as the kite dipped and soared in the breeze. A passerby stopped beside him, smiling at the scene. "Your family is beautiful," the woman commented. Michael nodded, not bothering to correct her assumption or explain the complicated reality. "Yes," he said simply. "They are." Later that evening, after Emma had gone to bed, Michael walked Sarah to her car. "Thank you for today," she said, keys in hand. "For everything, really." Michael looked at her, really looked at her. The woman before him was neither the young bride he had married nor the broken addict he had found on the street. She was someone new, someone who had fought her way back from the darkest places a person could go, someone who woke up each day and chose recovery, chose to be present for their daughter, chose to rebuild what had been shattered. "I'm proud of you," he said quietly. "I don't know if I've ever told you that." Sarah's eyes glistened in the porch light. "It means more than you know." On an impulse, Michael reached out and took her hand. "Would you like to have dinner sometime? Just the two of us?" Sarah looked surprised, then cautious. "Like a date?" "Like two people getting to know each other again," Michael clarified. "No pressure, no expectations. Just a start." Sarah squeezed his hand, a small smile playing at her lips. "I'd like that." As she drove away, Michael stood on the porch, thinking about second chances and redemption. About how sometimes, the most broken things can be mended into something new and beautiful. About how forgiveness isn't a single act but a daily choice. About how love, real love, can weather the most devastating storms and still find its way home. 3 years to the day after Michael found Sarah begging on that street corner, he stood beside her in the small garden behind their house, Emma between them, as they exchanged simple vows before their closest friends and family. It wasn't a traditional wedding by any means, both wore casual clothes, Emma served as both flower girl and ring bearer, and Sarah's NA sponsor gave a reading about resilience and hope. When the officiant pronounced them husband and wife, again, there wasn't a dry eye in the gathering. Not because their story was perfect or because they had erased the pain of the past, but because they had chosen to build something new from the ruins, something stronger and more honest than what had come before. As the small crowd applauded, Michael leaned in to kiss his bride, whispering against her lips, "Welcome home." That night, as they danced under strings of garden lights, Sarah rested her head against Michael's shoulder. "Do you ever regret it?" she asked softly. "Stopping that day, bringing me home?" Michael thought about all that had happened since, the struggles and setbacks, the small victories and profound joys, the slow rebuilding of trust, the rediscovery of love in its most mature and resilient form. "Not for a single moment," he answered truthfully. Across the garden, Emma danced with her grandfather, her dress twirling as she laughed. The sight filled both Michael and Sarah with a profound gratitude that transcended words. 5 years after that fateful rainy day, their story went viral. It started with a local newspaper feature about Sarah's work founding a support group for mothers in recovery. Someone shared it online, and suddenly their journey of forgiveness and redemption captured hearts worldwide. "We never expected this attention," Michael told a reporter who asked for an interview. "We were just trying to heal our family." But their story resonated because it offered something rare and precious: hope. In a world often cynical about second chances, they stood as living proof that rock bottom didn't have to be the end. Sarah now ran a small nonprofit that helped women struggling with addiction find housing, employment, and reunification with their children. Michael supported her work while continuing his own career, and Emma, now 14 and blossoming into a talented artist, volunteered alongside her mother during school breaks. "My mom teaches me that everyone deserves compassion," Emma explained in a school essay that later went viral itself. She says when you've been in the darkest place and found your way back, you have a responsibility to hold the light for others. On the 10th anniversary of their reunion, Michael surprised Sarah with a memory book filled with photographs documenting their journey, from those early, awkward days of her return to their lives, through Emma's milestones, their second wedding, and the building of their shared purpose. The final page held a simple photograph, the three of them on a beach at sunset, arms around each other, faces turned toward the horizon. Beneath it, Michael had written, "Sometimes the greatest act of love is believing someone can change when they've stopped believing it themselves." Their story reminds us all that compassion can transform lives, that forgiveness is a gift we give ourselves as much as others, and that family, in all its complex, imperfect forms, remains our most powerful source of healing. If this story touched your heart, please like this video and subscribe to our channel for more inspiring true stories that remind us of the extraordinary capacity of the human spirit to overcome, forgive, and love again.